Hey, everybody, this is Todd Kenely, and you are listening to James and Patrick on the interview.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Interactive Wrestling Radio featuring the interactive interview right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. It is your host, James Walsh, and just a few moments from now, we're going to be joined by TNA Announcer, the one and only Todd Kenely. We then are going to discuss all things Slammiversary and run down our top 11 matches in TNA wrestling history to celebrate 11 years of total nonstop action wrestling. And then we're going to air in its entirety the entire TNA Bully Ray teleconference that took place on Wednesday morning. So it's a very TNA show this week. We hope you guys enjoy it. Please go and like us on Facebook. Please check us out at WrestlingEpicenter.com. Check out our store and buy something, will you? And again, thanks again for tuning in. This is James again from WrestlingEpicenter.com, and you are listening to the interactive interview.
Hi, this is Mike Tenay of NWA TNA, and you are listening to the interactive interview.
Interactive Wrestling Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Interactive Wrestling Radio. On the Newsmaker line with us right now is a guy who will be a big part of this Sunday's Slammiversary pay-per-view as a ring announcer, or the color commentator, if you will. The one and only Todd Kenely. Todd, are you with us?
I am indeed. What's going on?
It's great to have you on the show, man. I got to tell you, I felt compelled to send you a message over Facebook just after lockdown. I was reading some reviews of your performance. Some people liked you, some people didn't, and I wanted you to know that I really enjoyed what you were doing because you made the reference to the Pee-wee's Big Adventure when you guys were at the Alamo Center for lockdown. So I really appreciate that you bring not only the play-by-play, as it were, but you also bring a little bit of color that throws some references in there that is a lot of fun to listen to.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, well, you can't be around the corner from the Alamo and not make a Pee-wee reference. I was happy that I found the opportune time to sneak it in.
There you go. I actually said that to Patrick before the show. I said they're at the Alamo Center. Somebody's got to mention the basement of the Alamo. But yeah, I'm glad you did that. So I guess the question I have to ask you is, you've been on my television since, October, maybe November of last year, and you started out with JB, and then now you're part of the three-man crew who's been the mainstay, especially since you guys have gone on the road. How did you end up getting your foot in the door at Impact Wrestling?
Well, I've been in the business altogether a little over 10 years, probably around 11 years, and, started out in Southern California, where I still live. Started out with UPW, which back at the time was really, a hotbed of upcoming talent. At that time, Frankie Kazarian was there, Daniels, Tara, young John Cena, and so, that's really where I first got my start, ring announcing at first, and then got an opportunity to do commentary as well. And so it was great because, now that it's kind of come full circle, I'll go further into detail, but now that I am with Impact Wrestling, it's, it was, when I first walked in there, it was like a reunion, seeing all those guys again.
Absolutely.
Samoa Joe is at UPW as well. But then from there, it was just taking experiences when they came along, branched out and did some MMA stuff as well. Worked with Elite XC, which was on Showtime. I called their undercard fights. I worked with World Combat League, which was Chuck Norris's show on Versus Network, and just tried to stay active in pro wrestling commentary as well. But the real break, there were a couple of them that I think it really is what opened the door at TNA. First was getting a spot working on Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and, I wish it was such a fun show and concept, and I just wish it could have continued on. Would have been interesting, I think, to see, what other type of celebrities we could have gotten in there if we would have had another season or two. But that was my
We interviewed most of
the
the celebrities that actually appeared on that show were ended up being on this show in one facet or another. And I never thought when I started doing wrestling interviews back in 2002 that I'd ever interview, Tiffany and talk about,
sure.
I think we're alone now. I mean, I never thought that would happen, but that's the strange nature of our industry, I guess.
It really is. And that was, just being on the set every day on that show, it was such an eclectic mix of personalities. It was really a lot of fun. And then, you've got that along with, a lot of over-the-top wrestling personalities, Hulk and Jimmy Hart and Eric and Brian Knobbs, Brutus Beefcake. So, it was just like a circus, but it was a blast. But, I worked behind the scenes there and then, was the ring announcer on that show. And that was my first real opportunity to work with Hogan and Bischoff. And I worked with them again in 2009, did a tour in Australia.
The Hulkamania tour.
With over the years, too. She was the one to get me on that tour, and so I got to work with Hulk and Eric again and helped run production on, had a really cool experience of getting to call a Hulk Hogan-Ric Flair match in Sydney, Australia with Eric Bischoff on color commentary. It was pretty cool.
Absolutely, and you know what, as a fan, I lifelong Hogan fan, I told you that over Facebook as well. I've seen the cell phone videos of those matches, but nothing that resembles anything that was studio produced. What's going to happen with those tapes? Do you think those will ever get released for the viewing public?
I certainly hope so, man, because it's like I said. What a cool experience, and the 7-8-year-old Todd and me, having a chance to call a Hulk Hogan match and call him hulking up and hitting the big boot and all the things that I grew up watching and loving. Was just like a dream come true. And I did, backstage interview with Hulk and one with Flair, and it was so hard to sit there and not mark out and, and keep a straight face. I don't know. I know that there's were some issues and squabbles over rights and what have you, and I wish I knew the details, and I wish I could say that they will see the light of day. I certainly hope that they do for a number of reasons. One being that there were just some really fun, great matches on that tour, and one that really, stood out was Eddie Fatu,
right.
Umaga's final match with Ken Anderson, and I'll tell you what, man, they stole the show. What a great physical match that would have been a great match on TV anywhere, and I think that just out of tribute, that match deserves to be seen because it was a great match.
Absolutely, and I was actually thinking about that. Umaga was part of that tour, and Ken Anderson, before he was even part of Impact Wrestling, was on the Hulkamania tour, so that was very cool. And obviously a lot of those guys ended up being part of TNA, and thankfully you have become part of it as well. What was it like getting in front of the microphone for TNA Wrestling? I will ask you a little bit about UPW, but obviously getting behind the microphone at Impact, was it a lot of nerves for you to go to something that's going to be seen by, at least 1 million people?
Yeah, you know what? You would think that it would be, and certainly, there was that nervous energy and excitement. For me, again, I think a big reason why, I wasn't really nervous to the extent that you would think was because of what I said earlier, that it really was like walking into a reunion. The second I got there, Kazarian and Daniels and Joe and I had worked with, Mike Knox or Nux and Doc as well in the past. Nux was in UPW, another guy. Gosh, you think how many people came out of there. But, again, everybody was just so welcoming and kind of was like, it's about time, Keneley, So I immediately felt at home, and again, Eric and Hulk, made me feel comfortable as well because I knew that, they had really gone, Eric especially had gone to bat for me. So I felt great. But that being said, I will tell you how it all went down.
Alrighty, and it was great to hear that Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff in particular, went to bat for you and got you into Impact Wrestling. You worked alongside a guy who has worked with WCW, with the WWA, and obviously with TNA as, the Energizer Bunny for that company for how many years now? Jeremy Borash. I guess, was he kind of the guy to kind of just show you how things work and before you hit the ground running, or was it, a tryout of sorts?
Yeah, I was brought out, say with under the guise of, hey, going to come out for a tryout. And when I got there and went to the meeting, with everybody sitting around, Eric introduced me to everyone, and he said, hey, everybody, this is Todd Kenely, and he and JB are going to be calling the first hour live. And so mix of surprise, excitement, and wow, okay, it's on now. It's baptism by fire, flying without a net. And I had met Jeremy briefly once or twice before, but never worked with him. Right. And as you alluded to, yeah, he couldn't have been nicer. He was the one that really kind of showed me around the set, showed me where everything was, really made me feel comfortable. And he and I just kind of sat around that afternoon and chatted it up. And he played some matches on his laptop, and we sat there and called some matches together just to try and get a sense of chemistry and kind of get in our groove a little bit, so that we didn't just have to try and hit the ground running and end up being cold, because, it's live TV. So exactly. If we just didn't click, it was going to be out there for everybody to see and hear, and, I would have been the rights before I even got going. So he was awesome. I really enjoyed working with him. We did that for about, 3 weeks, and before they put me in the 3-man team, but I still get to work with JB on Explosion, and I really enjoy calling matches with him.
Absolutely. And one of the things I enjoy about the shows now is that you guys have such good chemistry together, yourself and Mike Tenay and Taz. You all take offhanded, joshing shots at each other, and it almost reminds me of my childhood. I'm not sure how old of a gentleman you are. I'm 31 going on 32, and, I grew up watching hours and hours and hours of Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan together, and, sometimes what they were saying was more entertaining than what the match was on the screen, and I think you guys are starting to accomplish that with the the shots that you guys take at each other, obviously with Taz being a member of Aces and Eights and his taking shots at your puns and things. It's just it's an enjoyable thing to listen to. I guess my question regarding that would be, how does it feel to get into that main 3-man crew with a guy who's been with TNA since literally day one, and up until that Impact that you and JB did, had called every single match in TNA history?
Can you hear me? Because I'm kind of losing you a little bit.
Absolutely. I can hear you just fine.
Okay. In terms of working with Mike, but first, if I can go back to what you said a few minutes ago, to me that's a huge compliment, because that is the era that I grew up watching, and, people will make their claim of who they think the greatest commentator is of all time, and a lot of people will say Gordon Soley, a lot of people will say JR, and I think they're both, phenomenal broadcasters. But for me, the one that I always gravitate to is Gorilla Monsoon. I just think that he gave the matches such an aura and such a, huge feel, and to play with him and Bobby, or him and Jesse, was really entertaining. And so that's, I can't necessarily say I pattern myself after him, but I definitely think if you listen to my commentary close enough, you'll definitely hear some Gorilla in terms of, gosh, I was watching a show back the other day, and I think Aries came off the top to the outside, and I said, he lowered the boom, line right there. So definitely Gorilla. Working with TNA is great. A lifelong fan, just like I am. He started, he was telling me the other day, writing wrestling column when I think he was like 11 years old or something like that. He was already writing. And so he just, has such a passion, and I really think he's kind of like, the John Clayton of our industry, in terms of, you always go to John Clayton on ESPN as the, the NFL know-it-all, and he knows everything that's going on.
Absolutely.
Well, they don't call him the professor for nothing.
Right, yes. He very much is the professor, and it makes life a lot easier on me.
Well, it's been a great job having you on the show. It's been a lot of fun, and I did want to tell you, and I'm going to glance over because we want to get to Slammiversary, which is coming up this Sunday. Big event and big weekend for you. You're actually going to be part of the fan interaction as well. Just wanted to say that I didn't even realize at first that I was familiar with your voice, and I say that in the nicest possible way. I have been putting over a lot of my old videotapes that I've had on the shelf that have been taking up way too much space over to DVD, and a lot of them were the UPW tapes, and it wasn't actually until after your debut with Impact that I kind of connected the dots that it was you, and it's really cool to hear that you've progressed from UPW along with all those other great names that you mentioned previously and are with Impact Wrestling now. So absolutely, and, it's great to see that. I did want to ask you one question, though, about college football. You make a lot of football references. When in Pittsburgh, you made a reference to the bus, Jerome Bettis. I love that. That was really cool. Basically, do you find that that's been something that the crowd has really audience at home has reacted well to, your sports-based references?
I haven't really gotten a gauge. I try and keep up on how people are reacting, and I get a lot of feedback on Twitter and stuff. But in terms of that specifically, I haven't really gauged it either way. I haven't heard a ton of feedback either way. When you're a commentator, you're always trying to paint a picture and help tell the story, and anybody can see more or less what's going on out there. But if you can find a way to connect it to something and kind of give the fans that visual, I think it helps. And so, people can, I think, relate to, a big running back busting through a hole or something like that. And if you can make a connection to that in a big, flying shoulder tackle or something that's happening in the ring, I think it just helps to tell the story. So I hope people like it.
Cool. I absolutely do.
Actually, on this show all the time, we talk about how we like to tie professional wrestling into other sports. So we actually do appreciate that greatly.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it helps. And those guys they're just such phenomenal athletes. And I think when you can kind of, connect those two things, it helps people, again, to just kind of refresh your memory. It's like, yeah, these guys are amazing at what they do physically. And for me, too, like I said, I called a lot of MMA as well. So whenever I can, if a guy is doing, got a guy down and he mounts for punches, I'll say, and transitions into a full mount and ground and pound, and so I try and throw some of that terminology in too when it's apropos.
Absolutely. Is it more difficult to call a shoot fight, a MMA fight, than it is a wrestling match?
I think it is, simply because you don't have as much story to tell. I say that, but I'll clarify it too. Obviously, if you sit down and take the time to meet with the fighters, it takes a whole different type of animal to get in that cage and do what they do. Right. But with wrestling, you've got the characters and you've got the action and the fluidity of the match, and the guys telling a story, and you can really sink your teeth into that as a broadcaster. With MMA, it's hard to prep. You could have tons of research on a fighter, tons of notes, and they could go out and the guy's knocked out in 30 seconds. It's like, well, there goes all that, info. And on the other side of it, though, it could be a fight where the guy just really grinds out a win, and it's a lot of slow action on the ground, and you have to be prepared to fill that stuff in. So I would say, for me personally, it's easier, and I think a lot of that has to do also with just being a lifelong wrestling fan and having more of a sense of the timing and everything. And MMA, you just can't necessarily predict as much.
Very cool. Well, Sunday is a big night for TNA Impact Wrestling. It's the night where they celebrate 11 years of being in, and I still remember the first night of that company. Is there any match in particular you're looking forward to calling this Sunday above any other?
I wouldn't say above any other. To me, I will say that I'm really looking forward to Ultimate X, because I've never called an Ultimate X match. Wow. So that, I think will be a lot of fun to call, and just to be able to witness that spectacle and have the best seat in the house. Anytime the World Heavyweight title is on the line at one of the flagship shows, and you're celebrating the anniversary of the company, and you got a Hall of Famer, the icon Sting involved, that's a magical moment. To me, as a lifelong fan, again, the fact that I get to call Sting matches, in this day and age is awesome and a testament to him and his longevity. Looking forward to calling Angle and AJ. Really looking forward to that match because they've had many a classic match.
Absolutely.
But this one with AJ's new edge and AJ's twist and new in-ring style and a more methodical style. I'm looking forward to calling that match because I think it's going to be different from any AJ Angle match that we've ever seen. So I think that'll be really unique as well.
Absolutely, going more towards the technical style rather than the high-flying style is AJ going forward. And I think that's going to be something to see. I mean, we're making a list that's going to air on this next segment of the top 11 matches, and their early match in the Hogan-Bischoff era on Impact is actually one of those matches that I have on that list as the top 11 matches of all time. So hopefully they can break into the top 11 twice and have a killer match at Slammiversary. One last question about Impact Wrestling, and then I will let my buddy Patrick finish up with us. You guys are now on the road, and I got to ask you, how does it feel to be out there on the road and be calling these matches in front of a different crowd every week? Is it a different gauge of reaction to what you guys were getting in the Impact Zone down in Orlando, Florida?
Yeah, it is. And, and the Impact Zone was great. And, it was a great home for the company for many years. But I think eventually, and I know everybody in the company felt the same way. You got to take that big leap. You got to take that risk. And the product, for it to grow, you have to get it out there in front of different audiences and bigger audiences. And I think the shows in the UK really kind of helped to launch that because when they would go over there for the Maximum Impact tour and you would, see the product in front of 10,000 people, it looked amazing, and it's the way, I think it deserves to look and should look. Impact Zone was a lot of fun. The crowds were good and it was a good energy, and it was good because, it made things very convenient production-wise. It made it very easy for talent. You knew exactly where you were going, where to report, how to, It was good, but that being said, I really enjoyed being on the road, and you're in front of crowds that are clamoring to see the product. They've been watching it on TV. They're excited that we're coming to their town, and they come out. And people are waiting in the airports to get autographs and pictures. I mean, it's just a different energy because it's just not something that they're used to seeing every week or every other week.
Right.
And they get to experience, that. And so I think it's been great from the beginning. And the people have been coming out. The numbers have been great. The energy has been great. I mean, what a great way to kick it off with Chicago coming right off of, very controversial finish of the main event at Lockdown. I mean, and the energy's just been rolling ever since. Aces and Eights are running roughshod, and it's something that people are really, really buying into, and they're excited, and the energy is great. San Antonio for Lockdown was phenomenal, biggest live U.S. crowd, and can't wait to go to Boston. So love being on the road, just love meeting the fans, and yeah, you mentioned I'll be at Fan Interaction, so when the lines get too long for some of the real stars, then people can come over to me because I'm sure there won't be too many people there.
That's not fair. I'm sure there's a lot of people who look forward to seeing you. Oh, man. Well, I can't thank you for spending this much time with us. Sorry we had the phone troubles that we've had. But, Patrick, did you want to ask him any questions leading off?
No questions. Just thank you so much for your time. It's always a real treat when we have somebody that works for one of the major companies to come onto our show and spend some time with us. So it was really great of you to come on and be on the show with us. And also, good luck this weekend. I know it's a big weekend for your company. So best of luck to TNA, and hope everything goes well at Slammiversary.
Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah, looking forward to it. Can't wait for Sunday. And, thanks for everything you guys do. Thanks for the time, and thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, man. Thanks so much. And stay tuned for more from the interactive interview right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com.
This is Sting, and you're listening to the interactive interview.
Yo, maniacs, this is Hulk Hogan, the greatest of all time, and you're listening to The Blaze. So what you gonna do when Hulk Hogan in Blaze of Mania runs wild on you?
know, there was a Christmas movie called A Very Brady Christmas, and I guess you could call this episode of the Interactive Interview, Interactive Wrestling Radio, a very TNA Slammiversary weekend, because this weekend is Slammiversary, and we have two based TNA guests, if you will. First of all,
got a TNA sandwich here.
A TNA sandwich. Interesting. That sounds quite disgusting, but there you go. I think I'd rather have
Depends on whose it is.
Oh, boy. Well, you got...
we went to some dark places very early in our show, so professionalism, we win.
There you
we
go.
lose, or whatever. I don't know.
Well, one or the other. We either win or lose. I'm not sure. But anyway, to get to my point, first of all, we have joining us at the beginning of the show, and you've just gotten done listening to the interview, is our interview with Todd Kenely, the TNA ring announcer, or TNA announcer. I don't know why I keep calling him a ring announcer. He's actually the announcer. Joining us as well. Yeah, commentator. And he does a good job. I mean, a phenomenal announcer. This is the truth, and I said this during the interview, but I'll say it here. The reason I even got this interview, and this is the truth, is I was reading some online reviews of Lockdown, and they were taking shots at Keneley. And there's actually, like, if you search his name, one of the things that comes up on Google is a post on some forum that says Todd Kenely sucks. And I thought, you know what, that's not fair. If he's reading this, I don't want him to get discouraged, because I think he's doing a pretty darn good job. And he's stepping into a very set-in-stone lineup of announcers. I mean, up until the point where he and JB did the first hour of Impact sometime in early November, Mike Tenay had called every single TNA match up to that point. And that's, you know, unheard of for somebody to have called 10 years straight without missing a show.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, personally, I'm not going to sit here and say I think Todd Kenely is the best announcer in the world of wrestling today. I think that goes to JBL in the WWE. That guy's a godsend. I could listen to that dude call matches all day long. But as far as
he's honest,
Todd Kenely,
because he's brutally honest.
Exactly. And he feels like he's the only announcer that is in the WWE. But, you know, you look at some of the announcers that are out there today, and we on this show, we criticize Jerry Lawler all the time. And, yes, I'm glad that Jerry Lawler did okay and he didn't die from a heart attack. And I was really pulling for him when that happened and everything. And I've got a lot of respect for Lawler as a wrestling legend. As a commentator, he's absolutely horrible. I'm sorry. And I know that might offend some people, but I'm going to call him as I see him. He is the worst. And, you know, Michael Cole has always come under a lot of scrutiny as well, and a lot of it deserved. Although, in their defense, I think a lot of it is them being fed lines by Vince McMahon, and that's they're just regurgitating what Vince wants them to say.
It's more the reason those two get a lot of flack is the faked, stupid laughs.
Yes. That's a lot of it, too. Yeah.
Just, oh, God. First of all,
you know Vince is in the headset going, laugh, damn it. You know this is funny.
Damn it, that's funny. I think that's funny. For some reason, I just picture Vince as like the American dad. I'm funny. Laugh at me. I'm funny. Anyway.
But anyway, you know, with all the lousy commentating that's out there today in wrestling, I think to get down on somebody like Todd Kenely, I think is really unfair. For a guy who's a newcomer and has stepped on to live television this early on in his run as a mainstream wrestling commentator, he's really not that bad. I was actually impressed with him early on, where it's like, you know, he's a little green in places, but overall for a new guy, he's really not that bad.
Well, and the thing is, like you said, you say he's new. He's not really new to wrestling. He's been doing it for a long time. I mean, UPW is where he cut his teeth, and UPW is responsible for John Cena, for Samoa Joe, for Christopher Daniels, for so many people. He called a lot of those DVD and video releases that they put out. And so obviously he has experience calling wrestling. Obviously calling a show at the level of an Impact Wrestling is a whole different animal, but he clearly obviously has the drive, being a wrestling fan, as well as having the knowledge of wrestling from having called it before, and he does a good job. What I like about him isn't that he knows the names of the moves, because we all know the names of the moves, and while we all might call our own matches while we're playing a video game or something, we're all not going to be good at that. I do that, absolutely, I do that. You can hear me mumbling softly, you know. If you stand at my door, I'm sure when I'm playing No Mercy or something, you can hear me mumbling softly, "Oh, Jerry Lynn hits him with the TKO," or something like that. But anyway, we all know the moves, but it takes a different kind of animal to go out there and do it. And what he's done successfully, I think, is he's basically stepped in Mike Tenay's spot as the main commentator, the main announcer, the one who does the play-by-play, and manages to include puns, which he does very well, as well as mainstream sports references like Hernandez's jump was like Jerome Bettis jumping through the line. You know, that's something that you and I discussed and JVL might say, but it's not something that Michael Cole would say because, quite frankly, I think a lot of those announcers question our intelligence. Would they know who Jerome Bettis is? Well, you know what? There's a reason why Raw's ratings go down drastically during football season, and it's called Monday Night Football. Mm-hmm. Wrestling fans at this point are our age. They didn't used to be, but they are, you know, the 18 to 34 demographic. So what are you going to do?
Exactly. And Todd Kenely, I got to be perfectly honest, I think he fits in really well. I think he balances out Mike Tenay and Taz. I like having a three-man team. That's always something that I've really appreciated. It's hard to do because it can sound cluttered, but if you do it right, like in some points in WCW, or the one that I always put over the night SummerSlam 91, we got Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, and Roddy Piper all at the booth at once, which I think is the best three-man team I have ever heard in my life. And I'm not saying Tenay, Taz, and Keneley are as good as that, but they're not bad. They come across really, really well, I think, and overall it helps. I think Keneley does a really good job overall.
Yeah, they tried to say the honky tonk man who lives out near me and is doing a local Comic-Con this weekend actually recently said about how was Roddy Piper to work with as an announcer. He said, picture trying to call a match with Daffy Duck going off in your ear.
Tony Atlas.
That's Tony Atlas. Exactly. For Samba Simba, and he completely craps on the gimmick in his first match. That's Tony Atlas.
If you want to know why Vince feeds lines to the commentators nowadays, it's because he had to work with Roddy Piper. And Roddy Piper would just do whatever he wanted because that was Roddy Piper. And Vince don't like that. So that's why it probably is the way it is now.
Absolutely. Very contrived. And that's what the promos have been, too. But I think that as he's getting more guys in there that can cut more coherent promos, you're seeing that
Dean Ambrose.
Peel it back a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I think they're peeling that back a little bit and giving him a little bit of slack on the promo front.
Yeah, Dean Ambrose and Fandango. I think Johnny Curtis is really, really good on the mic, and his mic work, to me, has what really sold that character more than anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, the other half, if I get back to the original point, the other half of the show is going to be the teleconference that TNA did this morning with Bully Ray. Interesting teleconference, not as controversial as his interview with a Boston interviewer yesterday at the time that we're recording this, where the interviewer started by calling him a mediocre athlete. And
if that wasn't staged, then I fully agree with Bully Ray going off on him.
It's like... it reminds me of, remember when Vader went off on that morning show host in Kuwait?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. The guy was being disrespectful to him. I don't have a problem with it. Go ahead. Defend yourself. I mean, he's put you in a position where you kind of have no alternative to. Otherwise, you're going to look like a bitch. So you have no other alternative but to defend yourself. And as
in Vader's case, it caused an international incident. Well, not an international incident, but it caused major problems.
Absolutely, it did. So let's. It just obviously didn't cause that much of a stir. It was more of a a verbal thing rather than a physical thing. But you, as an interviewer, and you're one too, so you know you don't say anything that's going to upset them. One of the guys we had on in October, Buck Zumhoff, clearly had this part of his history where he was arrested for a sexual-based crime. And I didn't ask him about it because it was clear to me that he had no interest in discussing the matter. So you don't do things that you know will piss them off. Why would you call any wrestler or anything a mediocre person? Why would you then want to interview them if you think that they're crappy? It's like if I think
another version, the biggest one that I was a part of, I think, is when we had Lita on the show, and people were telling us, ask her about Matt Hardy and Edge, and I'm just sitting there thinking, it's like, look, we're so far removed from that. It's years down the road. We want to build a business relationship with people like Lita and, and get future interviews. And we're not going to be able to do that if we put them on the hot seat every single time. And, you and I, we're not, I'm trying to think of a comparison. We're not like the most reputable interviewers in the world. We're not Oprah. We're not Dr. Phil. We're not, a late-night talk show or anything like that. We're just, guys on the Internet having fun and working on a website. So I don't think it's really our place to be putting people on the spot like that.
Right, and not only that, but I wouldn't want to do that unless that was the purpose. If somebody called me up right now, Missy Hyatt, and she says, I want to do an interview and talk about everybody I slept with. Okay, that then fine, all right, fine, I can market that appropriately. But if I'm going to interview her, I'm not just going to say, so, who all did you sleep with? Because that's going to get you hung up on. It's going to be rude. It's going to be offensive. And why would you do that? I mean, it just doesn't serve a purpose. So the interviewer, how can I put this? The interviewer had no place doing an interview, and if they wanted to insult the person or viewed who they got as an interview as second fiddle to somebody else, then they probably should have said no thanks to the interview, because nobody said they had to interview Bully Ray. There's plenty of people who would rather have him on than not, and I certainly would rather have him on than not, so what are you going to do? Anyway.
Matt Hoover's gone, so the chances of pissing Bully Ray off are lessened considerably.
Yeah. As long as we don't talk about international sports and keep it about, music and wrestling, I think we'll get along just great. Anyway, here we are. A couple days removed, or a couple days away. I guess that would still qualify as removed from TNA's Slammiversary 11. Now, there was no actual 1, 2, or 3 as far as I recall, but still.
There was a 3. It was 2005. That was the first 3-hour Slammiversary pay-per-view. And they did do anniversary shows in 2003 and 2004, which I guess you could say are Slammiversary 1 and 2 if you want to be,
Yeah, I mean, if you go through the Wednesday pay-per-views, I guess you can count whatever one that came closest to the date as that. They did one the first year. I believe that was the debut of Sting. And the second year, I can't remember, honestly, what happened that year. But
that was the year it was Ron Killings versus Jarrett in the main event. And Jerry Lynn wrestled Scott D'Amore for 15 minutes. It was like this really long and awkward match.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that, but I watched all those Wednesday pay-per-views. Anyway, speaking of which, 11 years of TNA, and we're going to do our top 11 list of the top 11 matches in TNA wrestling history. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I haven't organized my matches in a list yet. So I'm going to let Patrick go first, and as I hear his list, I'm probably going to formulate more of an order. But I do have the 11 matches picked out, so I am prepared. It's just I haven't decided which one should go where yet. So I'll decide that pretty much in response to Patrick's list. And did you want to start your list?
Sure, I'll go right ahead and do that. From 11 to 1. And before I even begin with my list, I should point out that the Unbreakable Three-Way between AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe is not on my list. I know that's considered sacrilege. But looking back on TNA's history, and especially at the X Division matches that they've had, I look at it and I just kind of think back as like, that's not really one of my favorites. It's a great match. I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but I know not having it on a best-of list is considered sacrilege. So I thought I'd make a point where it's not that I think the match is bad. I just think compared to the other matches that I'm putting on here, I don't think it's as good as those. And that's just personal opinion. There are matches involving all three guys that I think are better, and I'll get into that in a minute. But, yeah, I'm just getting that out of the way right now. Just, send your hate mail to our Facebook page.
There you go.
And cursed me out on that. So, okay, starting. Number 11. I wanted to get the women on there, and I picked out, okay, the best women's match in TNA history, Gail Kim versus Awesome Kong in a no disqualifications match at Final Resolution 2008. That is just a fantastic match, male or female. And the two girls, they really tore it down. Gail Kim and Awesome Kong had a fantastic series of matches, and that one, I think, is their personal best.
I actually have that on the list as well, believe it or not. So.
Oh, cool. Okay, Kurt Angle versus Mr. Anderson in a steel cage match at Lockdown 2010. Obviously, with the Lockdown pay-per-view format, they've had a lot of cage matches over the years, and there's been a lot of really good ones, some really bad ones. When you look at Lockdown 2007 and the blindfold match and the electrified cage match. But I think one of their best ones was this one, Kurt Angle versus Mr. Anderson in 2010. It was just a wild, violent, dramatic, just a really good cage match, and I think it's one of the best cage matches I've ever seen, quite honestly. It's just everything that a cage match is supposed to be was in that match. It was just fantastic, absolutely.
I would agree. I remember I took that disc out after recording it, and the next day my son wanted to watch it to see what was going on with Team Flair versus Team Hogan at the time, and we watched that match, and he's like, wow, that's awesome. Wow, how'd they do that kind of thing? So great match. Okay, another gimmick match. Obviously, you got to get an Ultimate X on here somewhere. It's, the Ultimate X, even though they've done way too many of them, this is actually the Ultimate X match coming up at Slammiversary this weekend will be the 30th Ultimate X match that they've done, which seems like overkill, but you got to get an Ultimate X match on the best of list because it's the best gimmick match that TNA's created. And I went with P. Williams versus AJ Styles versus Chris Sabin from Final Resolution 2005. This one, to me, really captured the high-wire spectacle that the Ultimate X is supposed to be, more than any other match. And AJ almost died in this match like 3 or 4 times. It was just a really high-risk, crazy, flippy-floppy, just awesome action-packed Ultimate X match. There you go. Yeah, I remember the match. I don't have it on my list, but I do remember the match. Good match.
Oh, yeah, okay. Then, got to get a world title match on here, and one of my favorite world title matches in TNA history, Kurt Angle versus Sting at Bound for Glory 2007. This was one of those matches that they prepped up as a big dream match. It was Kurt Angle versus Sting. They never wrestled each other on any kind of major pay-per-view. I'm sure they'd wrestled on Impact and tag matches or whatever, but this was their first major pay-per-view encounter, and I loved how the show was in Atlanta, Georgia, and they said it as like, look, Sting made his career in Atlanta, Georgia. Kurt Angle won the gold medal in Atlanta, Georgia, so it's kind of like this perfect crossroads and this perfect battleground for them to have this epic match. And in my opinion, it delivered. I thought it was an excellent main event match and easily Sting's best match in TNA, and I just loved it. I really do appreciate this main event. I think it's one of those Legends matches that really, really lived up to the hype. It was really very good.
And I would agree, and again, another one that is on my list. So here we are with 11 years of TNA, and we so far have 3 that have actually made my list. I was on your list. Now, obviously, I think that we're not going to have that many that match up because I'm going to have a lot more from the Asylum years than you. But yeah, that's another one that definitely synced up with my list. So there you go.
Okay, number 7. I love tag teams. I mark out for tag teams, so I got to get at least a couple of tag matches on here. AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels versus America's Most Wanted for the NWA tag titles from Slammiversary 2006. Again, it's just tag team excellence from start to finish, and these two teams had been having matches throughout 2006. They'd had an excellent match the month before. I remember they had a match on the New Year's Impact special at the start of 2006. It was literally the first match of 2006. And excellent match. And this Slammiversary match topped all their previous work and was just a perfect payoff to the feud as AJ and Daniels finally won the titles. It was just an excellent it's what tag team wrestling is supposed to be all about, and it's always a joy to get a great tag match because there doesn't seem to be as many of them nowadays. Although, to throw WWE some credit, the recent Shield matches have been amazing, so and more indicative of what I want out of great tag team wrestling.
Absolutely. And they've managed to get the crowd involved in those matches as well, which is what makes the matches seem better, which I think is lost upon a lot of the Internet. I don't think they understand that the crowd reaction is very indicative on if the match was good or not. But anyway, that's another conversation for another time.
Okay, number 6, AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels for the X Division title in a 30-minute Iron Man match from Against All Odds 2005. This is a series of matches that, I'm being honest here, yes, AJ and Daniels always had really good matches, but they did it so many times that I just got sick of it. This was the first match that they had on a major pay-per-view, so I wasn't sick of it yet. And I think this match is amazing. It's a really good showcase for the Iron Man match format, which is usually a crapshoot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I thought this one worked really, really well. And I especially like the finish as time expires where Daniels locks AJ in the Koji clutch as AJ's bleeding. And normally I don't like that finish where they just lock in a submission hold as time expires, because then it's just like, okay, they're just killing time or whatever, and you get a draw for the finish. But with AJ, the blood rolling down his face, which was a great visual and one of the best visuals in TNA history, I think, it really left me, dangling for a minute where I was like, wait, did AJ just pass out? Did Daniels get the fall? So I really didn't know what the finish was going to be. So it was a really exciting match, and great stuff from the two TNA legends.
Absolutely. Okay,
number 5, more tag team excellence. I love this match to death. The series of matches between Beer Money Inc. and the Motor City Machine Guns has been highly praised as one of the best series of matches that TNA has ever done. And they did a best-of-5 series in 2010 that concluded at the Whole Effin' Show, which was basically a free pay-per-view. It was a TV special that they did for Impact right after the Hardcore Justice pay-per-view in August of 2010. And Beer Money and the Motor City Machine Guns, the last match of the series, 2 out of 3 falls. So basically it was a best-of-7 series. So we got our bang for our buck on that one. And this match is one of the best tag matches I've ever seen. And if at all possible, Beer Money and the Motor City Machine Guns, after all the great matches they'd had up to this point, they managed to top it tenfold. This was an outstanding tag team contest between 2 of the very best teams in TNA history.
I can't agree more. I mean, the Whole effing show, that was definitely that was on a Thursday night on an Impact, but that match was phenomenal, and those guys always worked well together. And I don't know how else to phrase it except to say absolutely, I agree with that. It's not on my list, but I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4. Obviously, you and I were fans of America's Most Wanted. We love that tag team, one of the best tag teams in TNA history. It's really down to either them or Beer Money to see who was the best tag team in TNA history. Both of them involved James Storm. Go figure. But we got the AMW split, and this match I thought was absolutely amazing. It was Chris Harris versus James Storm in a Texas death match at Sacrifice 2007. And I remember seeing it at the time and thinking, that was a match that was worthy of WrestleMania or Starrcade. And what I mean by that, it was just this perfectly executed friends-turned-enemy storyline built up for months with a fantastic payoff, with a match that covered all the story points and made both guys look like stars in the end. Obviously, Chris Harris's career didn't really pan out after that, but this was a violent, brutal, just fantastic match all around. And TNA had another one like it with Bobby Roode and James Storm at last year's Bound for Glory, but I kind of lean more towards the Sacrifice Harrison Storm matches, which one I like more. But both of those matches are absolutely outstanding.
I would agree.
Okay. Yep. And number 3 on my list is one of the first matches in TNA history, actually. I'm going all the way to the beginning here. AJ Styles versus Jerry Lynn versus Low Key versus Psychosis in the very first X Division Championship match. This is a match, and specifically the part of the match that I loved was when it came down to AJ and Jerry Lynn, because it had this really unique format to it where it was a double elimination series, and it was 2 guys wrestling each other one-on-one with each guy having to be pinned or submitted twice before there was an ultimate winner. And the first X Division champion was crowned. Obviously, that was AJ Styles. One of the major TNA highlights that they still show on their highlight reels to this day. This, to me, was the match that really defined what the X Division was going to be all about. It was going to be this fast-paced, high-risk, crazy action. And this match captured it perfectly. It was fantastic. And when it came down to AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn, I was having flashbacks to Steamboat and Savage. That's how good this was.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. That is on my list, and shouldn't be surprising because that's from the Asylum years. So that is on my list.
Okay, and number 2 on my list is actually my favorite X Division title match in company history. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe for the title at Turning Point 2005. This match was outstanding. I can't say enough good things about this match. It was a perfect David versus Goliath type of match with AJ playing the underdog against this freaking monster that was Samoa Joe at the time. And people who don't remember what Joe was like back when he first came into the company, he was like an unstoppable force of nature, especially in the X Division where everybody was smaller than him. And these two meshed together perfectly. And they had a lot of matches after this. None of them were as good as this one. This one was just a great clash of styles, great, like I said, a great David versus Goliath type of story. And Joe got his first big X Division title win, and it felt like a big deal. It was an absolutely amazing match.
I'd agree. Yeah, that was not on my list, but that's a great match. Absolutely, I can't deny that.
Right, and number 1 comes as no surprise to anybody. It was a match that was greeted with the chance of best match ever, so got to go with it. America's Most Wanted versus Triple X and Six Sides of Steel at Turning Point 2004. Honestly, one of the best cage matches I have ever seen in my life. It was one of those matches that had a little bit of everything. It had high flying, it had tag team action, it had brawling, it had violence. It was a cage match, so it had like a high-risk spectacle. Elix Skipper walking the cage to this day is still one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen in a wrestling ring or any wrestling match. It was a great long feud over the course of like a year and a half, and this was the payoff. And it felt like a big deal, so it had a main event appeal to it as well. This is one of those matches, one of those rare cases where this match was not lacking anything. It had everything that is great about professional wrestling all in one match, and I think it's the most excellent, fantastic match in TNA history.
Absolutely. It was the launching one, too, because it was... they
got a lot of buzz from this match.
What's that again?
They got a lot of buzz from this match. I remember that.
Absolutely. They got a lot of buzz. Everybody was talking about the match. It was great for them because they needed the buzz for the Fox Sports Net show, which it definitely, got some of that buzz for them. Everything with TNA has been through stages. You have to see it escalate. And that was definitely one of the events that took place that got them a lot of buzz. And I have no problem with it being the number 1. It really was one of the best matches, and yes, it is on my list. So, yeah, great list. I'm looking at your list now. I actually typed it out as we were talking. And I'm going to do my list, if that's okay.
Sure, go right ahead.
All right, so the number 11 match on my list is Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Moondog Spike against Glenn Gilberti and Mike Sanders from the Wednesday night.
You just didn't help yourself, could you?
I could not help myself. I had to put it on there. There's a running gag, for those who don't know. I put Jim Duggan on any kind of top 5, top 11, top whatever list that we do. So it's my chance to do so. The cool thing about this one was it actually took place. Jim Duggan kicked off the show by announcing that we had just started a war with Iraq. So it was kind of a cool little tie-in. It should be easy to find the date of that one then, back in 2003. So
I assume this was a comedy match. I've actually never seen this one.
Oh, there's nothing special in a match. I just had to get Duggan on there somehow. It was a comedy spot. Moondog came out with his bone and was hitting people, and that's basically what it was. It essentially was just a circus. But there's nothing special about the match. I just needed to get Duggan on the list in some fashion. Number 10 on my list is actually going to be AJ Styles versus Kurt Angle from the Impact where Hogan joined. It was they've had a lot of great matches, but in my opinion, that was the one that really helped them shine because they had such a huge audience. It was such a special night, and I think that you couldn't really top what they did there. I mean, it was incredible. That was the 4th of January of 2010. Just to show you that I have done my research on this guy. Next one actually is going to be the Asylum years, and I'm going to go with a match between Trinity and Kid Cash. Now, I know a lot of people might be surprised to hear that. I don't have the greatest of history with either of these folks. But in my opinion, as in terms of a hot crowd and a crowd legitimately buying into what was going on, Trinity versus Kid Cash had everything it needed to have. That was back in April of, actually it might have been May of 2003 on a Wednesday night pay-per-view. And unfortunately, despite all the heat that they had going into this match, they never were really able to accomplish anything else that surpassed it. Partially because the match was so violent that it actually made In-Demand pay-per-view very queasy, and they basically outlawed any violence between men and women for the longest period of time, which is why you don't see very many male versus female matches in the course of TNA since then.
Yeah, and well, I'll say this. And going back to your AJ and Angle match, I forgot to comment on that. That was an outstanding match, and I think a lot of people who watched both Raw and Impact that night, because that was the first time both shows went head-to-head, I think a lot of the people that said Impact was the better show, it was largely dependent on that AJ Angle match. That's how good it was. But Cash and Trinity, you know, I wasn't watching TNA at the time. The only things I had heard about, rumblings about, obviously AJ Styles, America's Most Wanted, and this Trinity and Kid Cash feud, which apparently had like these really, I was always told that they had these really like violent and sick segments, and it culminated in this really like sick and brutal match. So, yeah, it's really cool that it's on the list actually, because I remember hearing about it. It had some buzz when it first happened.
Right, and I was at the time good friends with Trinity, and I was kind of stunned to see how violent it got, because it really did reach quite an intense level. Number 8 on my list, and it made my list and make your list. It was the Unbreakable 3-Way. Just a great match, deserves to be on the list. Quite surprised you didn't put it on there, stink it on as number 11. I guess it would be number 12 on your list if you were doing
It's a top 15, not a top 11, though.
Very good. All righty. Number 7 is going to be, it is a cage match that made your list, but it's a different one. From the 1-year anniversary, Slammiversary 1, actually it was a week after Slammiversary 1, if you will, it was another cage match between AMW and XXX, and it was another great match, not as good as what you had on your list, but that's still upcoming, but that was still one of the matches that I think deserves to be on the list. And it ended with the Vegematic off the top of the cage, which was just insane.
That is an awesome spot, and TNA should still be showing that on highlight reels. Even though, yeah, Skipper and Harris aren't with the company anymore, they should still be showing that, because that is an absolutely crazy spot.
Absolutely. Number 6 on my list, and it's shocking that he's not been on this list yet, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett against Raven. It was the first really well-publicized TNA match. It was a big pay-per-view. It almost felt like it was a pay-per-view anyway, but it almost felt like a pay-per-view within a pay-per-view because it was such an important match to the company. And that was. And the
funny thing about that match, the funny thing about that match is that before then, TNA, they'd established their X division, they'd established their tag division, but their heavyweight division, they struggled a little bit. They couldn't really find much of a direction for it. This was that direction. When they got that Raven and Jarrett feud, that was the first thing they did that really captured anybody's attention on a main event level, where it showed, we can do great stuff with the heavyweights too.
Absolutely, I agree. My next one was Gail Kim versus Awesome Kong. Same event as what you had. It was from Final Resolution 2008. The reason why I went with this one is I remember doing the show right after this pay-per-view, and what we were discussing was it reminded us of a Sting versus Vader match. The whole feud felt like Sting versus Vader because they were such good, stiff matches with a much smaller person up against a much bigger person, and they really sold the match as well. So I think that one really earned its spot on the list, to be completely fair with you. Absolutely. Number 4 on the list is actually going to be the what I'm going to have on my list. I'm looking through what I have, and I'm going to try to put them in the order just to finish it up. I'm going to put the sacrifice match between Storm and Harris on there. AMW, just incredible. AMW collide, if there's a Mega Powers collide like WrestleMania 5. Just incredible, completely brutal. So I think that, that found its way high on your list as did as well for mine. Number 3 is another one where the tag teams exploded. Rude, Ed, and Storm from Bound for Glory. And I was there, and, it was one of those matches and the things that you're seeing as you're seeing it happen live, and you're thinking, they might want to stop this because it just looked so damn brutal that you thought somebody was going to get really, really hurt. So I put that actually a step above the AMW one, but that could just be because of the, seeing it live gives it a whole different feel.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, CM Punk versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania is one of my favorite WrestleMania matches now, just because I was there live. So I totally understand that. Yep,
absolutely. I totally get that. Another one that I'm going to put on there, and this is number 2, and there's only one left after this one, because that's how the countdowns go. Ernie from Sesame Street taught me that. And that would be, I'm going to put, I can't decide which I'm going to put where. I'm going to do it here. It's going to be the 4-way, the AJ versus Jerry Land versus Psychosis versus Low Key from the first TNA pay-per-view. It might have been the second one, but it's from the first tapings. And just really, put a fine point as to what was to happen at this TNA X Division and really defined it, because a lot of people thought it was going to be Spot Monkeys, and they did bring in a lot of Spot Monkeys after that. There's a guy running around calling himself Slim Shady, a guy running around calling himself Cobain that they brought in later on, and it's like, who are these Spot Monkeys? They don't deserve any spot on television. But these guys were the perfect guys to do it. They tell a story, and you know what? They ended up being, 3 of them ended up being X Division champion and some of the most successful in TNA history, especially Lynn and AJ. And number 1, I got to do it. Number 1, I got to put down as the number 1 match in TNA history would be the Turning Point 2004 match. I have to agree with you. There was just nothing that created, no single match created buzz about TNA like that. Honorable mention for me, if I can. I'm not putting it number 1 on the list or anything crazy like that, but I'm going to give it an honorable mention. Hogan and Abyss against AJ and Flair from the March 8th, 2010 Impact. Not that the match was anything special, but just to see the company come from what they were and to have guys, regardless of their age or stance at that point in time, guys like Hogan and Flair having a match for them really just cemented what legs the company was going to have going forward. And, regardless how the Monday Night Wars turned out for them, it was definitely a big night for the company. So I want to give that an honorable mention.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's, really good list, man.
Very good. All right. And I guess
could do without the Duggan match, but, I can't stop you on that.
Hey, Hacksaw's Hacksaw. You got to have Hacksaw on the list. It's not a complete wrestling list unless Jim Duggan's on it.
Yeah, I actually never saw any of his stuff in TNA, so, I couldn't do that myself.
Oh,
actually, I wanted to ask you something, speaking of that, because I'm, like I said, I haven't watched all of the weekly pay-per-view era stuff. Chris Harris and AJ Styles had a title match one week in 2004. How was that match? Because that sounds like something I would have really wanted to see.
You're talking about Jeff Jarrett against Chris Harris?
No, I've seen that match. That's on the AMW DVD, and that's a fantastic match. That was actually one of the ones that was almost on my list. But, no, it's AJ Styles versus Chris Harris. They had a match sometime after that, like right after AJ won the title in the cage match.
Right. It was okay. It didn't have the same kind of feel to it that the Harris and Jarrett match did, because I don't think AJ was holding that position the way Jarrett did. So there was a whole different story involved with it, and the story didn't resonate as well as the Harris and Jarrett match.
Mm-hmm.
But it still was a very good match, but it just wasn't. It was if you're going to go by the story leading into it and the way that it was pulled off, it didn't have the same legs.
Okay.
Technically, it was probably as good of a match, but the passionate response that we were going to have, hoping that this guy wins, just wasn't there for that one.
Okay. Because I have seen that Harris and Jarrett match, and it was outstanding.
Absolutely. I think he should have won it, but then again, look at where he's gone since then. Harris, that's a guy who probably should have been world champion at some point. Absolutely could have been a homegrown hero for TNA, and for some reason, just after AMW, it was all downhill.
Yeah. Well, I remember they did that feud with Dustin Rhodes that went nowhere, and then that was kind of the end of it.
Well, yeah, that really shat upon it if you really think about it. Him putting over.
And then Braden Walker in the WWE happened, and then that was that buried him for life, basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. When James Storm said he was going to have a partner at Slammiversary, we both kind of thought, if it's Harris, I hope he's in shape. That's kind of basically what we both thought. Anyway, let's talk about Slammiversary since we just mentioned it, and finish up our preview.
Okay, let's do that. I have the card punched up. This match is going to be announced tomorrow night on Impact. It's a 6-man tag match. It'll be Samoa Joe, Magnus, and Jeff Hardy versus Briscoe, Bischoff, and Doc of the Aces and Eights.
Okay, just added throwaway match to get more Aces and Eights guys on the card. It's a fair way to get more of the evil faction on the card. I'm okay with it. It's just going to be what it is. It might be a good way to start the show and get some momentum going for TNA. Have them get the win or something like that to kind of give people hope that TNA will overcome in other matches between themselves and Aces and Eights.
Right, I agree. I think Hardy's team is going to win just because it's going to be Hardy's first match back, so, no way he's losing. So, okay, babyfaces are going to win that one. And then we have Jay Bradley versus Sam Shaw in a qualifying match for the Bound for Glory series, which is part of that gut check mini tournament that they were doing to decide who of the gut check winners would get a spot in the Bound for Glory series.
Based on the fact that Sam Shaw was on Impact, I'm going to say that it's probably going to be him who gets the win. It seems like they were ready to push him, and he's another guy who was trained by Bully Ray and Devon. Mm-hmm. So, logically, etiquette would dictate that he would win the match.
I think Jay Bradley's going to win it, actually. I think, I don't know, right after coming out of his gut check match, it seemed like that they were high on him. And he beat Christian York in his match, which I'm kind of surprised that wasn't the finals, which, I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe Sam Shaw will win this. I don't know. I don't know. I think they're going to run with Bradley, though, because it feels like they have a plan for him.
They seem to like him, and they like his boomstick, which is like the clothesline from hell, but they seem to like that. So,
which nice Army of Darkness reference, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. Good job for him, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's
okay.
Is he the one who said he trained with CM Punk, or is that somebody else?
That might be somebody else. He might have. I don't know.
I think it's the guy he beat in that gut check contest, actually.
Yeah, that was actually the best gut check match that they did.
For other reasons, I thought the Taylor Hendricks one was, but that could be just me being a dirty old man.
Yeah, exactly. Then we got Gail Kim versus Taryn Terrell in a last knockout standing match.
I like the idea of the match. My only gripe with it is that the X Division, the Knockouts champion should be on the card as well, if not instead of. But they have put a lot of time into the feud, so I am okay with it. Just not sure how. It's a lot of pressure for Terrell to see how she.
Terrell has a lot of question marks on her.
Right. It's a lot of pressure for her to be in this match, which is going to be a gimmick match at TNA's second biggest show of the year. So it's going to be a lot of pressure on her. It's going to be sink or swim.
Yeah, and we all said a lot of similar things about Brooke Tessmacher. She turned out to be at least okay. She developed well enough to be an acceptable part of the Knockouts roster. Taryn Terrell, she's had a few matches, but I'm still kind of unsold on her. I'm kind of fearful that she's going to be like another Kelly Kelly.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want another Kelly Kelly. But yeah, I mean, the Stro posted on Facebook when Terrell came to the ring once. He said, there's a big difference between being a wrestler and being a model with gear.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, I'm not against her. I'm not for her. I think that we have to basically make up our minds to some degree on how she handles the pressure of this encounter. And the feud's been built well. It's gotten almost a hockey-based reaction when Terrell attacks her. It's been like that guttural roar from the crowd of approval, which I am quite surprised that the crowd is as interested as they are in it. So I'd be interested to see if they can parlay that into a match.
And to be fair, you know, she's in there with Gail Kim, and if you need somebody stable to be in there with to help carry the load, you know, you've got Gail there. So
absolutely,
that's something. That's a big Gail Kim to win just because she's Gail Kim.
Somebody who should have been on the Bound for Glory card, by the way. So I'm glad she got on the Slammiversary card, even though she's not in the title picture.
I think she was having her honeymoon at the time.
Very possibly, very possibly. She got married to the cook, the TV cook.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah. Which, by the way, an English person teaching having a cooking show is like a rock teaching a swimming class.
The English knows how to cook.
Yes, they do. I'm just busting their chops. They do have the reputation of not knowing how to use spices and things, but a lot of that's more myth than reality. I'm just busting their chops. My wife's English. No, obviously, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
All right. Next up, TV Championship, Joseph Park versus champion Devon.
I am looking for something interesting to happen with Abyss in this match.
Will they finally pull the trigger on the split personality thing?
No, but I think that they will do something with Abyss, like they did last year. Sting has been on Impact saying, how long are you going to kayfabe me on this? You know, obviously they're starting to pull back the curtain a little bit on that. Joseph Park is not Abyss thing. Either they do, one of the two things is going to happen here. Either they do reveal that he is Abyss, maybe, you know, Joseph Park takes his shirt off or something and you see the tattoos and then thus you can't hide it. Or they do another thing where Joseph Park's outside the ring and Abyss rolls from the other side of the ring and attacks Devon. Don't know if they'll get away with it 2 years running, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think Devon's going to keep the title just because it feels like they want to. I don't know why. I just feel like they're going to put the belt on Magnus, and that's what they're going to set up for down the road. Hopefully they establish the TV title a little bit more because they really haven't done much with the belt.
Not since Devon won it. No, not since Devon won it back, no. They started to run with it a little bit, but you're right. Not since Devon won it back. It's been very undefended, an afterthought of sorts.
Right. Now we have the X Division title match. It's going to be an Ultimate X match between champion Kenny King, Chris Sabin, and Suicide.
Other than the fact that Suicide is just thrown into the match, I think that this match will be good. The match should just be Sabin and Kenny King. That's the two that have been feuding into the match. Nobody really cares that Suicide's part of it. It's an afterthought.
Well, I mean, that's basically been the problem with the triple threat format. You and I were talking about it when they did. It was King, Sabin, and P.D. Williams. And you and I both agreed. It's like, well, why is P.D. Williams even in this? And it's like, well, that's just the format they've created, and that's kind of the problem. Hopefully, since this is an Ultimate X match, that means that this will be the end of the format because, you know, the idea of this format is that whoever takes the pinfall moves back down into the contenders three-way. So how do you pin a guy in an Ultimate X match? So I think that maybe they're listening to the fans a little bit, and maybe this will be the end of that three-way format. And the winner of this match will most likely go on and challenge the World Heavyweight Champion at some point this summer.
Absolutely. And you know what? And that's interesting because there is no Destination X this year as we know it. Might be a one-night-only pay-per-view. I'm not sure, but I thought that was...
Well, they've already mentioned it on TV, that they're going to keep that X Division title shot, heel.
Yep, that was something that James Storm said to him, so that was definitely something that could play into it. And
because of that, I think Chris Sabin's going to win.
I think Chris Sabin should win. I think that Kenny King has grown as a character since they've let him talk. I think that was what was missing from him. The format has not helped him any. In fact, I think it's hurt him drastically. But I think he'll be fine. I think he'll still be a contender for the title. I just think that it's time for Sabin to win it. By the way, those who don't know, they should check this out. Sabin looks identical to the lead singer of a band called Night Ranger as he looks now. Now, the guy in Night Ranger's in his early 50s, so take that into consideration. But still, they look very similar, especially with the hairstyles. Sabin must have had a hard life because I'm the same age as the guy, and he looks much older than I do.
But yeah, it seems like they really want to run with Sabin. I mean, they gave him that big video package when he returned and everything, so it just feels like, and he was the first X Division guy in a while to get significant mic time, so it really feels like they're going to run with him and give him that title shot against Bully Ray. And hey, Bully Ray has to work with somebody this summer, so. And, of course, I just spoiled my prediction for the main event, but whatever. So we're both picking Sabin for that one. And then we have a four-way elimination match for the tag titles. It'll be Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez versus Bad Influence, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian, versus Austin Aries and Bobby Roode versus James Storm and Gunner. And, yeah, this should be a fun match, if nothing else.
Yeah, don't really know about the Gunner choice. We'll have to see how that pans out. I hope it's a push for him. I like the guy. If they can develop a personality for him, because he's not done it as well as he could on his own, it could be interesting. My personal pick, though, I think that this is the time where Bad Influence needs to shine. At this point, they've kind of become the 3MB rather than the driving force of the tag team division, so I think that they definitely need to get the win to stay relevant.
Yeah, to me, it's going to be either them or Aries and Roode, because I know Aries and Roode were doing that storyline where they said that they were going to try and capture all the titles, and it never really panned out beyond the tag titles. So I don't know if they're going to kind of restart that at Slammiversary, have them win the belt, and then they go on and start trying to own the world. But we'll see how that all goes. But it's definitely down to one of those two teams, I think. Absolutely
down to one of those two.
All right, and next up, we have AJ Styles versus Kurt Angle, and I have to say, I'm going to throw some praise towards Impact. I thought the AJ segment on last week's Impact was outstanding.
Absolutely. I can't imagine it coming off better. They keep the creepiness of the character without making him a rah-rah-rah guy, and I think that's the most important part of telling that story, and they've done it well.
And I got to be honest, it totally sucked me in. I was like, whoa, he joined the Aces and Eights. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
So they did a really good job with that.
Absolutely. Very similar to Sting joining the NWO black and white, because apparently the color of the logo determines if they're good or bad. But he put on the black and white shirt, and then he took it off, and he had the black and red shirt underneath, and that was very similar to that, while keeping more of a creepy edge to his character.
Right, absolutely. And, AJ Styles and Kurt Angle, they've had plenty of matches in the past, all of them great. We've already put over so many of their matches. They actually wrestled each other at Slammiversary back in 2008, and that was the first major pay-per-view match that they had. So, these two always work really well together. AJ's got a new character, new personality, so hopefully that'll lend itself to making this match different. And, I think AJ goes over, no question.
I think AJ has to go over. I think he has to win it to maintain the... to continue the where is he coming from angle.
And I'm actually, I think AJ's going to win the Bound for Glory series, and that's how they're going to do that and have him beat Bully Ray at Bound for Glory. So absolutely, I think he should win this and just keep the momentum rolling.
I agree. I don't think that there's any reason to defeat him at this point. I think any loss to his character right now would hurt him. And you know what? He's doing a submission move. How much more momentum could he get if he beats Kurt Angle by a submission?
Yes, absolutely. And that'll lead. Yeah, the final one is a no-holds-barred match for the World Heavyweight title, Sting versus Bully Ray, where if Bully Ray wins, Sting will no longer be allowed to wrestle for the World Heavyweight title. Bully Ray should win this match.
I could not agree more. Bully Ray should walk away with this title. Still intact. I think he's the world champion going forward. I think the story's got to continue. I think that could create some interesting friction between Hogan and Sting, where Sting is going to do maybe a packing his bags and taking his ball and going home style gimmick, and making a return, because Sting likes to do that. Sting is very much a 2 months on, 1 month off kind of guy. So. I think it would be a good thing for them to do, and...
He would add a lot of heat to Bully Ray. I think. Just oh my God, he ended the main event run of Sting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sting can come back and Sting can still do stuff and be a big part of the show and will. But I think it would be a good way to create some more friction between Hogan and Sting, and maybe even send Sting down a creepy road. You know what I mean?
Styles and Sting tag team.
Well, yeah, like Savage and Sting standing in the rafters together or something. Maybe show a dark side of Sting where they disagree on things. How it's going to happen is I see Brooke Hogan turning heel, and
yeah, we've been kind of predicting that for a while, actually.
Yeah, I could see Brooke Hogan turning heel. I don't know how it'll pan out. I don't know how they'll play it. The only benefit I could see of it would be Brooke Hogan in leather outfits.
I was also thinking maybe Matt Morgan would do a run-in and attack them both at some point because they seem to want to use him.
Yeah, he's a guy that's just not going to get it. If you either have it or you don't, and I don't think he does. And it's such a shame because he has the physical abilities to be so good, but he just doesn't connect with the people.
I know, and they've given him chances. It's not like they haven't tried.
Oh, they've given him chance upon chance upon chance, and none of them have worked. But yeah, I think that you're going to see Bully Ray continue to be World Heavyweight Champion, and he's already said on the teleconference we're about to air that he wants to wrestle Hulk Hogan, which is just a crazy idea. I can't imagine it happening, but it would be definitely an interesting.
Hogan's hand just exploded.
Yes, kids, don't put your hand in a radiator.
His hand looks like it had a zombie bite on it.
Train, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and don't put your hand in a radiator. That's the Hulkster way of the day.
The fifth commandment or the sixth commandment, whatever.
Yeah, he had the train, say your prayers, take your vitamins, believe in yourself. In WCW, he added kick your ass, and then I guess that would be the sixth one then.
The sixth commandment, don't put your hand in a radiator.
There you go. Alrighty, and speaking of that teleconference, we got that to wrap up the show here. Hope everybody enjoys this week's Slammiversary show. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we pack it in?
No, that's it. Again, I hope everybody enjoys Slammiversary, and kudos to TNA for surviving 11 years. It's pretty remarkable. Nobody thought they'd be here that long. I remember thinking going into Slammiversary, the first one in 2005, the first official Slammiversary pay-per-view, I remember thinking that the company was going to announce their closure because that was when they had gotten off TV on FSN and there was no announcement on when they were going to be back on TV. So I was like, well, they're dead. And I was fully prepared to hear that TNA was going to die at Slammiversary 2005. And here we are. It's been 8 years since then and they're still around. So kudos to them for that. They're much bigger and better since then.
Absolutely. Continual process of growth despite many knocks along the road. It's been a pleasure being a TNA fan throughout it all. And you know what? Like I said, you could see general progressions of growth, and they've really done well for themselves. I'm very proud of TNA Wrestling for becoming what they've become. Nobody said it was going to be easy, and nobody said it was going to be overnight. But they are continuing to prove that they are a growing entity and something to be recognized in pro wrestling.
Well, they are the number two country in the United States, and they deserve that level of recognition.
Absolutely. Well, hope everybody enjoyed the Todd Kenely interview, and stay tuned. Hear the Bully Ray teleconference, and enjoy Slammiversary. We'll be back next week to discuss what occurred at the big event.
This is Bobby the Brain Heenan, and if you're smart like me, you'll be listening to Interactive Interview. I do all the time.
To ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. Your first question comes from the line of Mike Johnson.
Hello, Bully. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good. Obviously, the last year of your career has been a pretty stellar one, a different role for you, and obviously a top role as a singles performer. How does being in that top position change the way that you prepare for your matches mentally and even physically? Because you've been on top before in different companies and in different scenarios, but being the guy at the top of the pyramid, how does that change the pressure of going into a main event like Slammiversary on Sunday?
I channel all the pressure into the performance, and because I have been, in the tag team world, I've been in extremely high-profile matches all over the world. So being in a high-profile singles match, I kind of understand the pressure, and I'm able to channel, the pressure, into the performance. The only difference is, now it's all on me. It's all on my shoulders from a total performance point of view. If, in a tag team match, if something's going wrong, if you need a break, a breather, you can always look to your partner and tag out. Can't do that. I'm up against, obviously, one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, and Sting. This is probably the biggest match of my singles career, and I'd say one of the biggest matches of my career to this point. Looking forward to it a lot. Proud of the fact that I am main eventing TNA's second largest pay-per-view of the year, probably.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Your next question comes from the line of Mike Minot with CBS Radio.
Actually, that's Leno. Hey, Bully, we're really proud of you, obviously, for those of us who followed your entire career before ECW, what you and Devon accomplished in Japan. And Mike asked some of my questions. So we're enjoying your current arc as the center of attention, world champion and boss of Aces and Eights. So here's the question. Is currently right in TNA, is this the most satisfying for you professionally, and do you feel the success and interest globally in Aces and Eights has sort of forced WWE to try yet another invading group in their copycat Shield?
I'm not, well, I'll take the last part first. I'm not quite sure that the Shield is a copycat of the Aces and Eights. They have their product, we have ours, and I'm proud of our product because when I sit back and I look at the landscape of professional wrestling, I can honestly say that I believe TNA offers the best brand of sports entertainment / pro wrestling. There is a little bit of everything for everybody in this promotion. So as far as them, I really don't even worry about what they're doing. I believe they offer a different brand of entertainment as opposed to ours, which is a little edgier. And, as you mentioned, ECW, maybe not as edgy, but, definitely dipping towards that, that way. I'm really proud of everything that, we've been able to accomplish with the Aces and Eights. Proud of the fact of where I've come and how I've been able to do it, and I did it the old-fashioned way. I went out there and I made everybody open their eyes, just the way I've been making everybody open their eyes for the past 20 years. Whether you loved me and Devon, whether you hated me and Devon, you always had to respect the fact that we went out there and we always made sure we found the spotlight and we commanded the spotlight. And that's exactly what I'm doing now out, on my own as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
And certainly TNA is way more wrestling-centric, so just really can't wait to see the pay-per-view. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Your next question comes from the line of Ryan Ryder.
Bully Ray, world champion. Was that something that you ever expected to hear earlier in your career?
Well, I heard it pretty early on in my career. It was just world tag team champion.
Yeah. But transitioning from tag team to being a singles competitor, was that always your goal?
No, actually, I've said this in other interviews. When I first got into wrestling, as a matter of fact, as far back as I can remember being a wrestling fan back in the late 70s when I was watching the Strongbos versus, Fuji and Saida and Gorilla and Martel, I was a tag team wrestling fan first. That's my earliest memories of pro wrestling. And I always loved tag team wrestling. I always thought that a wrestling match could be so much more exciting with 4 guys as opposed to 2. So as I before I got into the business, I knew that I wanted to be part of a tag team. I wanted to have a successful, legendary tag team that people were going to talk about, forever, in the likes of the Road Warriors and the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express and Arn and Tully and all of the Freebirds and the Funks, all of those other legendary tag teams, and that was my goal. And I believe that me and Devon accomplished that goal. I will never, ever say that me and Devon are the greatest tag team that ever lived or we're the best tag team that ever lived, because I really don't know what dictates greatest or best. However, what I can tell you is this. We are the most successful tag team that's ever lived. And when you sit back and when you analyze tag team wrestling history and when you talk about the best or greatest of all time, you're going to have to mention me and Devon. The Dudley Boys / Team 3D have done what no other tag team has been able to accomplish. So now, after we look back and we look at the landscape of things in about 3 years ago, when we see that there's really no other tag teams for us to, feud with or have a run with or, really make money with or, you sit back and well, what do you do now? Well, that was the right time for us to go our separate ways. That was the right time to embark on singles careers and say, all right, we conquered the world of tag team wrestling. Let's see what we can do with our singles careers. And everything is going really well for the both of us. He's the TV champion. As you know, I'm the world heavyweight champion, the Aces and Eights. We are on the tip of everybody's tongue in the wrestling world.
Your next question comes from the line of Scott Fishman.
Hey, Bully. Scott Fishman, Miami Herald. Question I had is just on your overall evolution and the transition you made in the singles ranks. What do you attribute that to in growing, and did you ever think that you'd be as successful as the TNA World Champion as you become? Was that the ultimate goal when you first transitioned to the singles ranks?
No, when I first transitioned into a singles wrestler, my goal was to see how close I could get to the original version of me without actually being able to do what I did, in ECW. That very edgy character, that in-your-face guy who I knew could be the most hated guy around, and is. I'll put Bully Ray up against anybody when it comes to being the most hated, and nobody spits venom like I can on a microphone. That's not me just saying it. That's fact. The whole evolution has been very interesting because I just wanted to see how far I could go when we first split up and see how many people I could piss off. Was my goal to become the world heavyweight champion? Not necessarily at first, but when I saw how everything was going and I saw how, some of the fans were reacting and really getting into everything, my last man standing match with AJ Styles, any of the other matches that I had with any of the great wrestlers in TNA, people were really getting into it, and it's the character has really grown. And I've always said this. I say the word character, and it's really weird. It's not a character.
Right.
I just turn the volume up on who I really am.
Okay. And, you're able to get such a rise out of people, such a reaction. I was just curious how much, obviously, TNA gives you the freedom on the microphone. Is there any time where you've gone backstage and you're like, wow, I can't believe you said that? Or it's been like, wow, that was great what you did?
No, that's the great thing about TNA is the freedom that we do have and the freedom that I enjoy. TNA allows guys to be who they think they should be. And I think that's why we have such great talent and such great characters here. And that's why I think the fans are able to emotionally invest in our characters better than any others out there. Being able to go out there and say the things that I want to say and how I want to say them allows me to be as successful as I am.
All right. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Sean Radigan.
Hey, Bully. How you doing?
Good.
What was your inspiration a few years ago to, really dedicate yourself to get into shape?
Well, I knew that when me and Devon had gone our separate ways, that we would, there would need to be a drastic reinvention and quickly. I knew which direction I wanted to go in, quote unquote, character-wise. I always knew what I was and what made me successful as a character. I knew my in-ring ability, was always there. So now I just had to do something from a visual point of view, and I thought, well, now is the time to get into the physical condition that I always truly wanted to be in, and I knew I could be. Whether I was 400 pounds or whether I'm, where I am now at 275, I always considered myself a really good athlete. And if you go back and you watch any of the matches, you could see that there was, no one that, me and Devon couldn't hang with. But I knew there needed to be a reinvention. I always kind of compare it to Kiss. Kiss wore the makeup. Then they needed to reinvent themselves, and they took the makeup off. Then they needed to reinvent themselves again, so they put the makeup back on. I think the physical reinvention is what really got people to sit up and take notice, and I think that that's when they realized how dedicated I was to making this whole, singles transition work. I feel great out there. I know I look better out there. And it all clicked at the same time. So that really was my motivation. Just needed an overnight reinvention.
I wanted to commend you. I heard you on the local radio yesterday in Boston doing a show, and the host was pretty disrespectful to you. He was a Jeff Hardy fan. And I thought you handled yourself really well, considering some of the things he said to you. What's it like for you to go out there and be, able to represent TNA in a setting like that and get, questions from a host like that I didn't even think existed in this day and age?
Well, as far as the interview yesterday, it's cool that he's a Jeff Hardy fan. I don't care. You could be a fan of anybody you want in wrestling. That's objective. So if he would have just said, hey, Bully, I don't like you because, I like Jeff Hardy better, well, then that's cool. But don't ever call me average. Don't ever second guess what I've accomplished in this business and tell me that, you were disappointed to have me on the air. If you were that disappointed to have me on the air, why didn't you just tell me when I shook your hand and said hello, and we could have saved everybody, the hassle of even doing the interview. But this guy figures he'll throw his digs in on the air and try to get at me, and I just verbally shot him down. And anybody that's on the line knows if this was 10 years ago, the verbal berating would have been a lot worse. But there's only so much you could say in this day and age. So, listen, that's past me, whatever. But I enjoy doing interviews like this and speaking on behalf of TNA and the Aces and Eights, because I believe all we can do is help move the company forward. And I see so much light at the end of the tunnel for TNA, and I think things start to click. Sometimes you get a little off track, and then they start to click again. But I think Slammiversary is going to be a great pay-per-view. I know what I'm going to go out there and deliver, and I know what all the other guys in the locker room are going to go out there and deliver, because when you sit back and you look at this locker room, and every single wrestler that makes up this company, it's the best cross-section of pro wrestlers in the whole world, anywhere.
Well, thank you, Bully, and congratulations on all your success.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Adam Davey.
Evening, Bully. It's Adam here from the V2 Journal in the UK.
Sounds great.
All right. Anyway, back to my question. First, I wanted to say that that your character development over the last 2-3 years has been absolutely phenomenal, and seeing you with the belt, it just feels right at the moment. So well done on that. But my question is to do with the UK tour when you're over here this year. you were pretty much the top babyface in the company at the time. It was before you revealed as the leader. A lot of the programming around that time, you were doing a lot of Hulk Hogan mannerisms, you know, the getting punched and the no and all that kind of stuff. Whose idea was that, and how did it feel doing it? Did you enjoy it?
It was my idea, and it was a lot of fun to do. And it was fun to do because the people responded to it. Whatever I do in that ring, I don't do for myself. I do for the emotional investment of the fan. Are they going to like this, or are they going to hate this? And I learned that lesson from Vince McMahon. I'll never forget the day he pulled me on the side and he told me straight up, he goes, all of your ideas and everything that you come up with is so, so good, but remember, never, ever go out there and do what you think is entertaining, go out there and what they think is entertaining. So I knew at the time that, hulking up would fit perfectly into everything that we're doing, and I enjoyed it also. I thought it was a lot of fun to do. Hell, he got 25 great years out of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, just a quick follow-up. Obviously, you've got your wrestling school. Does the way that you teach the students differ when you're a heel and when you're a face on TV programming?
No. Me and Devon's wrestling school, the Team 3D Academy of Professional Wrestling in Kissimmee, Florida, we are a very old school pro wrestling academy. Our slogan is old school rules, new school tools. We teach our students in the old school way of the business, which is based in and has a foundation in respect for the business. You respect the other guys that you're in there with. You respect the business. You respect the veterans that came before you. And then we try to teach them in the new school way, what it takes to make it in pro wrestling today. We start them from A to Z. There's so many wrestling schools out there in the United States and all over the world who are run by guys who have absolutely no business training younger wrestlers because they weren't successful. They never made any money, and they never got over in the business. So what business do they have training up-and-coming wrestlers? So that's really how we look at wrestling at our academy. We try to give them the strongest foundation in the wrestling business we can. And we have the longest school out there. Our school is a one-year school. So, even after a year, you still don't know what the hell you're doing, but at least you have a year of quality training under your belt.
That's great. Well, thanks for your time tonight, and I hope to see you back in January when you come back to the UK.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Your next question comes from the line of Alan Levine.
Hi, Bully. I'm Alan Levine speaking on behalf of the Punchliners show from Israel. Let me start off by saying it's a true honor to talk to you. And my question is, how does it feel to be the guy of Impact Wrestling? Is it as good as you've always imagined? And do you think it's going to be any bigger in WWE?
Being the guy, quote unquote, the guy of Impact Wrestling is, it's definitely cool. I never really sat back and thought about it like, hey, I want to be the guy. I always knew that if I just busted my ass and did what I did, it would happen. You can't stand in the way of success. You can't stop rock and roll, and you can't stop me. As far as, get back to being the guy, it's great to be the World Heavyweight Champion. But at the end of the day, this is a wrestling company composed of a lot of different wrestlers. And not only one guy can carry a wrestling promotion. In my opinion, in this day and age, it takes everybody. And like I said, I think this is a great locker room and a great cross-section of all of the great wrestlers, of great wrestlers. And we give you the best, the best bang for your buck. If pro wrestling was a buffet, Tommy Dreamer's fat. That's a Tommy Dreamer's fat line. I always got to bury Dreamer. You guys know that. We offer the best buffet in pro wrestling, a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah. Okay, and who of the newest guys do you think has the do you see as the biggest future in TNA Impact Wrestling?
As far as new guys are concerned, like really young guys, I think two guys stand out to me: Magnus and Rockstar Spud. I think Magnus is, quote-unquote, as the total package. He's got a phenomenal physique. He's young. He has great in-ring ability. He speaks really well, and I think he's got world champion written on him in the years to come. Rockstar Spud, he's got it. He's got that it factor. He's got passion. He's got piss and vinegar. He's got fire. He hits that ring like it's the last match he's ever going to have, and you just can't help but, be into him, when you hear him speak or when he hits that ring.
All right. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you in Israel anytime soon.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Josh Motherberry.
Hi, Bully. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Great pleasure to speak to yourself. You've mentioned Vince McMahon already. How would you compare your three bosses, Paul Heyman, Vince McMahon, and Dixie Carter?
The people that I have learned, I've learned more about the professional wrestling business from guys like Paul and Vince, because those are pure wrestling minds, and those are two of the greatest minds that you could possibly learn from. I mean, imagine being a young wrestler and coming up and having Paul Heyman mold you in a gimmick that he created, as the Dudleys, and being able to work side by side with one of the greatest speakers in the history of the business, and a guy who has a great mind for psychology. So, coming up under Paul was just awesome, and I learned so much. And then it's like going from Darth Vader to the Emperor. You go from Paul Heyman, to Vince McMahon, and it's like now you see things on an even bigger scale. And I've learned so many things from Vince. So many individual lessons. I mean, I told you guys one before how he taught me to, go out there and, put things together for what the people really want to see. There's also other lessons that I learned from him, one-on-one. He taught me so much because I had a really good relationship with him just, on a business and personal level. So learning from those guys is incredible. Now Dixie's been a phenomenal boss. Dixie runs a wrestling company from a more personal point of view. I've learned things from her in the wrestling business that I would never have learned from Paul or Vince, because those guys are such diehard pro wrestling guys, cutthroat guys. Dixie takes a different approach to things. So in one way, shape, or form, I have learned from all of them. I don't have anything negative to say about any of them, because in their own way, shape, or form, they've all been great to work for.
No, definitely. And, of course, you and Devon had so much success as a tag team. What do you make of the current state of the tag team divisions in both WWE and TNA?
There is no state of a tag team division anywhere. Tag team wrestling, unfortunately, is almost extinct. I'm happy for guys like Bad Influence, like Daniels and Kazarian, and Rude and Aries were together for a while, and and Chavo and Hernandez, but it just doesn't feel the same. I mean, as great as Frankie and Chris Daniels are together, I think they're I don't think you can build an entire tag team division around that, because there's just such a lack of other teams. Unfortunately, tag team wrestling, like I said, it's almost extinct. I wish I could tell you that there was, light at the end of the tunnel for tag team wrestling in any division. But until WWE or TNA really puts the focus on trying to rebuild it, I don't think it's going to happen. I am proud of obviously my tag team run in ECW, the great tag team run in WWE, and being the most successful team that ever existed over there, and then coming to TNA and having a phenomenal, tag team career and getting, to, work with and help, develop teams like the Motor City Machine Guns and Beer Money and America's Most Wanted and any of the other great teams that, we worked with in TNA.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, buddy, and best of luck for Sunday.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Chris Shore with ProWrestling.net.
Hi, Bully. Thanks for taking the time today. Someone alluded to your babyface run earlier, and I was just curious. You've had a lot of great success over the years as a heel. And now having, and you've played babyface characters before, but, most recently you had this one. Do you think that you could have this same level of success as a babyface character whenever this heel run, as it currently is going, kind of comes to an end? Could you see yourself changing over and having the same amount of success with that type of character?
It's actually a very good question, and something that I've actually thought about. Because I've taken the people on such a roller coaster ride over the past year to year and a half, I'm not exactly sure I could get the full emotional investment that would be needed to be a top-tier babyface again. Can it be done? Yes. Will it take a lot of time and a lot of investment? Absolutely. And you know what? Being liked sucks. Being hated is so much better. So, I tweeted it out the other day. If you like me, that's good. If you respect me, that's better. But if you hate me, that's best. So, how's that?
That sounds great. And as kind of a follow-up to the idea of when this run ends, so many times when we see these major factions pop up like Aces and Eights, where they're kind of all-consuming of the show, we see them kind of come to a terrible end in the sense of the stories tend to fall apart. There doesn't seem to be a conclusion. Sometimes it just gets kind of shatters all the way through the card. Is there any concern of that happening with Aces and Eights? Is there a plan for how this ultimately plays out, or is it still just a work in progress?
I think everything is still a work in progress, and I think as long as I continue with the Aces and Eights to generate the amount of disdain in people that we can do, the sky is the limit. Because I'll throw this back on you right now, and you answer my question because I'm interested to hear your answer. Tell me right now, in pro wrestling, who generates the heat that I or we do?
I don't believe there is anybody.
Generates real hatred, real heat, real disdain, the kind of disdain that makes people want to throw bricks through your window. Who does it?
I have to say I believe it's you guys. Specifically,
there you go. So
an Eights on the end, so.
Gotcha. And that's what's going to keep it alive for a long time, because we bring to the table something that is, you don't get a lot of organic response in the wrestling world anymore. It's a lot of canned response. Okay, I should boo him and I should cheer him. That's not what you get with me, and that's not what you get with us. And I can't speak for all of the other guys, but I can definitely speak for me, and I know I can speak for Devon. You will never get that with us. If you hate us, you will hate us with every last breath in your body. And if you love us, you're going to love us till the end.
Thank you for your time, Bullet. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Chris Pilkington.
Hi, Bully. It's brilliant to speak to you.
Thanks.
So I want to start with something you've kind of touched on a little bit earlier, which is to say that you've been very successful in every promotion you've wrestled for over the years. But what do you think is the key to that longevity in the industry and your ability to stay relevant for so long?
Key to my success and my longevity and Devon's longevity is one word: passion. We are in the business that we wanted to be in. We came up the old school way. We paid our dues. We busted our asses. We've been up and down the roads. We've been all over the world. We've done it all, and it's still fun, and we still make a boatload of money doing it, and we still love the business. All those things keep our passion burning, and that's it. It's the passion for the industry. Not many people get to say, that they wake up every day and they're doing exactly what they wanted to do with their life. I do. Devon does. That's what keeps us going. Being able to help train some of the future stars of tomorrow in our wrestling school. Being able to help some of the younger guys in TNA reach their dreams and hopefully so they can make a lot of money and they can become future champions. All of that stuff. But I can say that we're the last of the Mohicans. We're the last of a dying breed because guys like us who have so much passion for this industry, you don't find a lot of them, anymore.
Fantastic. And if I can just ask a quick follow-up from that, you mentioned there the Team 3D Academy again. What is the relationship currently with TNA and the Academy? And is there anybody currently there that you would like to see step up or perhaps even join you in Aces and Eights?
The Academy and TNA has done some crossover business before. But we are not affiliated with anybody. We're a standalone wrestling school. We don't work directly with any one particular wrestling company because that's not why we opened up a school. We opened up a school to help guys get started from day one. We don't promise them anything. We don't tell them we're going to get them jobs in WWE or TNA or Ring of Honor or Japan or any place. What we do tell them is when you leave our school, you're going to have just enough info underneath, under your belt to go out there and give yourself the best opportunity to succeed in the world of pro wrestling.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your answers. It's a real pleasure to speak to you.
And just as a quick follow-up, Sam Shaw, who'll be wrestling, at Slammiversary, in a Bound for Glory qualifying match. Sam Shaw is a graduate of the Team 3D Academy.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question comes from the line of Dean Olsen.
Hey, Bully Ray. It's Dean Olsen here from News Limited Australia. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, brother.
Now, at Slammiversary, if you manage to defeat Sting, he will never get a shot at the TNA World Heavyweight Championship again. I'd like to know how important this is for you and the Aces and Eights to keep Sting away from the title picture while you're on top.
It's extremely important because, no matter what, Sting will always be a threat. I've heard rumblings like, Sting doesn't deserve to be in this position, or maybe Sting's a little bit too much of a veteran to be in that position. You know what I say to those people? I say go to hell, because you've never laced up a pair of boots and you don't know what it's like. Sting can still go. I'm in the ring with him. I'm the one who trades punches with him. I'm the one who lays into him and he lays back into me. And the guy has it 1,000%. He's one of the toughest guys I've ever been in there with, okay? And when he comes out there, the people love him. So does he deserve to be standing across the ring from me wrestling for the World Heavyweight title? Absolutely. And we're going to deliver at Slammiversary. Well, at least I know I'm going to deliver and kicking his ass, okay? And as far as, the follow-up to your question about Sting, about, him not being able to wrestle for the title again, it's a very important step. Because from a personal point of view, I do want that notch in my belt. I do want to be able to put him up on my trophy wall and say, look, there's Sting. I'm Bully Ray. I'm the guy that made sure he could never wrestle for the World Heavyweight title again. I want him to have to lace up his boots knowing that I'm the guy that ruined his world title aspirations for the rest of his life.
Okay, thank you. And for a quick follow-up, I'd like to know, will the Aces and Eights be following you and having you at ringside during your match at Slammiversary?
You never walk alone.
Very well. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and good luck at Slammiversary. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Jamie Kennedy.
Hey there, Bully. You mentioned earlier the Team 3D Pro Wrestling Academy, and obviously there are so many different styles around and so much knowledge for young wrestlers to soak in. What I wanted to ask you is there one specific piece of advice you were given right back at the start of your career which still holds true today?
Absolutely. 2 words. It's very simple. And I still tell these words to any up-and-coming wrestler that comes up to me and says, hey, what advice do you have? What advice do you have? It's very, very simple. You ready?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Get over. Get over. What that means is I don't care what you do when you go out there. I don't care if you run around naked and do handstands. Make the people react. Make them cheer, make them boo, make them laugh, make them cry. Get them to invest in you emotionally. Get the people to do something. Get over, because then a company will want to use you. I don't care what moves you can do. I don't care what it is. Just go out there and get over. Because if you can get over, a company will be forced to use you.
Fantastic. And as a follow-up to that, I wanted to ask your opinion on this. Since going live, TNA really seems to have this extra buzz, which many people previously felt was lacking a little bit. Just how much has going live and also taking Impact Wrestling out on the road meant to the guys in the locker room and the promotion overall?
Well, there's no doubt about it that going live is the best step ever for TNA. You always want that feeling of anything can happen. The wrestlers feel it. The fans feel it. Live has so much more energy. Imagine if you went to a rock and roll concert. Imagine if you were watching Kiss and you're ready to see Kiss, but you really were just watching them on the big screen as opposed to live. It's cool and all, but it kind of loses its energy and its flavor. So going live is the absolute best thing. And as far as being on the road, you have to. You have to grow. You have to move forward as a company. You can't stay in one spot. You can't stay in a sound studio that you've been in for 8 years. You need new blood, new life, new passionate fans, people going crazy, and going on the road. The people in the arenas have been loud. They've been with it. They've been getting entertained. They're getting their money's worth. And I think all of the fans and wrestling columnists and journalists can see the difference.
And just finally as well, a quick note on AJ Styles, who's been quite a polarizing figure since his return. It's a very interesting character, and it's got that link, or many fans have linked him with the Aces and Eights. Having wrestled AJ numerous times, you know a lot about him. What have you made of his new character, and do you think he would be a good fit with the Aces and Eights?
Well, I thought he would make a good fit for the Aces and Eights, but as of last week, it didn't exactly go the way I had planned. I think AJ is content on doing his own thing right now, being a guy totally on his own. Not only did he kind of stab, me and the Aces and Eights in the back, but stabbed Kurt Angle in the back. I don't think anybody knows where AJ Styles' head is at right now. Maybe you should call him. I couldn't answer that question. It's going to be interesting to see what path AJ chooses in the weeks to come.
Okay, thanks for your time, Bully. Congratulations on all your success, and good luck for Sunday.
No problem. Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Kevin Shuren.
Hi, Bully. This is Kevin from Moonsault.de from Germany. How are you?
Oh, yeah. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to Slammiversary, actually. I will be watching on sport1.de because television won't have it anymore. so we have it on the internet. But we pay for it, so don't get me wrong. My question is, what is besides your match? What is the match from the Slammiversary card that you are looking forward to?
From a personal point of view, my brother Devon's match against Joe Park. From a pure morbid interest point of view, I want to see what goes down with AJ and Kurt, especially with everything that just happened in the past couple weeks. I really want to see where AJ's head is at. AJ and Kurt have always had fantastic matches, go at each other really hard, toe-to-toe. AJ's in a different mindset right now. I'm really interested to go with, to see what goes on in that match. And another one that has a little bit of personal interest for me is Sam Shaw versus the Jay Bradley guy, because Sam Shaw is a graduate of the Team 3D Academy. I'd like to see him win this match and make it into the Bounce of Glory qualification.
Cool. You may be following the Gut Check Challenge, and there's also a German wrestler on it. It's Bad Bones John Klinger. Do you know him, and how many chances do you give him to be a TNA wrestler soon?
I don't know him, so I can't tell you what chance I give him.
Okay. And, well, the last question, I heard you're a big soccer fan, and the two German teams were in the Champions League finals last weekend. Have you followed the Champions League finals, and who were you rooting for?
Yes, I watched the game. I really wasn't rooting for any in particular team because I'm not a fan of either one of those clubs, but I was just hoping to see an exciting game, and it definitely was an exciting game.
All right. Thank you for your time, and good luck on Sunday.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from the line of Andrew Downs.
Hi there, Billy. I actually have quite an interesting question for you. Recently on our show, Ministry of Slam, we did a specific show dedicated to blood in professional wrestling, and whether or not it was necessary nowadays concerning the health risks that are related to blood in professional wrestling. What I wanted to know, as someone who came from the land of extreme, what is your opinion on blood in professional wrestling and the possibility of blood-borne illnesses in professional wrestling due to, obviously, blood?
Well, all I know is guys have been bleeding for whatever reason in pro wrestling for 100 years. In ECW, I was in the ring with guys that bled every single night all over the place. Yep. Guys that might not have led the cleanest of lifestyles. Do I think there's room for blood in pro wrestling? Well, yeah. Why shouldn't there be? Okay. Not having blood in pro wrestling, things like that, it just goes with, to me, it's like the watering down of everything, like the watering down of society and everything's so politically correct. I personally don't, look at it like that, If you have a safe company and people are properly tested, then I don't see why guys can't get busted open and bleed out there, and matches should continue. I have absolutely no problem with it.
Perfect, fantastic. I was just really interested to find your opinion. We're really just trying to get a broad view on the subject, and it's great to hear someone who's obviously pro. I mean, a lot of people are very negative of it, so thank you for your time.
Yep.
Your next question comes from the line of Donald Wood.
Hey, Booyah, this is Donald Wood from Bleacher Report and Ring Rust Radio. As great as your title win was and your title reign has been, you get to enjoy it with Devon in the Aces and Eights. How special is that to work with someone, you your whole life you have been with this guy. Now you get to enjoy being at the top of the mountain. He has a title, you have a title. How great is that? Does that make it more special for you?
I tell you what, it is kind of cool because, let me ask you this, what other tag team in history who has been as successful as me and Devon as a team has enjoyed this side-by-side success as we are?
Very few, if any.
I don't know if you could. Well, let's take TNA World title and TNA Television title. Has any other tag team ever held the two highest ranking titles in a promotion side by side?
No.
So I guess we've done something special again.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I'm not sitting here. I'm not trying to be a douche and blow smoke, but it's fact. We were the most successful tag team in wrestling history, and now we've accomplished this. I'm the World Heavyweight Champion. He's the TNA Television Champion. We head up the most successful faction in pro wrestling right now. Nobody has done it. We've reinvented ourselves again, and we've put our name on the tip of everybody's tongue. And that's what kept us relevant for so long.
Staying with your world title, with my follow-up here, Hulk Hogan has come out and said he would like another shot at the title eventually. You and him have a beef, obviously. So how would you like to fight Hulk Hogan eventually?
Let's put it like this: after I defeat Sting at Slammiversary, I want Hulk Hogan in the ring.
All right, good luck at Slammiversary.
That's who I want. I want Hulk Hogan in the ring. I want that match. I want to look across from him and know that his fate is going to be the same as Sting's. And let me tell you something. Hulk Hogan versus Bully Ray will get the whole wrestling world talking. For one reason or the other, people will be talking about it. And I don't care who sits back and goes, oh, Hulk Hogan, he's this or that. He doesn't belong there. At the end of the day, people will be interested. They'll be interested, and they'll want to see what happens.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Your next question comes from the line of David Dunn.
Hi, Bully. You talked a little bit earlier about growing up and being a fan of tag wrestling in the 70s and things like that. A little bit later on, did you used to watch any Sting matches before you broke into the business?
Oh, yeah. Actually, one of my favorite standout matches of all time involved Sting in a tag team match. Halloween Havoc 89, Sting and Flair against Funk and Muta in the Thunderdome cage with special guest referee Bruno Sammartino.
Fantastic. How does it feel then to know that on pay-per-view you're going to be standing, he's going to be on the opposite side of the ring to you, and you're going to be wrestling?
No, it's cool. I won't downplay it at all. Listen, growing up, I wasn't a little Stinger or a little Hulkamania or anything like that, but I was a fan of what these guys did, and Sting was always at the forefront of, the NWA and the WCW. So, whether I wanted to see Sting or didn't want to see Sting, I mean, he was always there as the top guy, So, to be able to stand across from him, knowing that he's always been a top guy, knowing that he has always that he's been in one of my most memorable matches that I've ever seen, and knowing how hard he's going to come after me after I screwed him over, I mean, you got everything there that that you need for a great main event.
It's a very exciting scenario. Best of luck for the pay-per-view on Sunday, sir.
Thanks.
Your next question comes from the line of Josh Motherberry.
Hi, buddy. Just your opponent on Sunday, Sting, he was announced as the first member of the TNA Hall of Fame at last year's Slammiversary. Who do you think will be the second member of the TNA Hall of Fame at this year's Slammiversary?
I really don't know. I have no idea. I'm sure they've sat around that big round table and discussed it. Let me ask you, who do you think it should be?
I think it should be Jeff Jarrett, to be honest, a guy who started the company with his dad, and not seen him for a while, but I think it would be great to induct Jeff.
Yeah, that's a great name. That would be a great induction. Sure, I agree with you. And
second question, you had a magnificent tag team career. What were some of your favourite matches from your and Devon's tag team career?
I really don't have favorite matches. I really don't have favorite anything in my career because I don't put anything in front of the other. Everything has been my favorite. I've enjoyed everything just as much as anything else I've ever done. But obviously there are moments in my career that stand out more than any. the night that me and Devon hit our first 3D in the ECW arena, the night that we won our first ECW World Tag Team titles, our last night in ECW in New York City, where we both won and lost the titles in the same night. Obviously, in WWE, the TLC matches. You know, WrestleMania 2000 was the first triangle ladder match. WrestleMania, there was SummerSlam, which was the first official TLC. There was WrestleMania 17, which most say is the greatest WrestleMania of all time, where TLC 2 stole the show. In TNA, all of the great matches that we've had against Beer Money and the Motor City Machine Guns. In Japan, winning the 2005 All Japan Tag Team League Cup, going undefeated in the entire tournament, winning the finals and defeating the Great Muta and Akebono. All of those things stand out in my memories of tag team wrestling.